only about a month old, just 1 day younger than my own little sister, Charlotte Ann, who really ought to belong to our gang too because she's so great. But she can't because she's too little, and especially because she's a girl, and girls don't usually belong to a boys' club. Let me see. Oh, yes, I ought to tell you that Poetry has a tent in his backyard where our gang sometimes has our meetings when we don't have them at the spring or the big sycamore tree or on top of the hill on the east side of the woods where there is a big rock and a big patch of wild strawberries. Well, I better get busy telling you about the bear. When we first saw her, she was way down along Sugar Creek, right out in the middle of the swamp. She'd been wallowing in the mud, the way black bears do in the summertime when it's terribly hot. Well, that's why I told you the bear looked like one of my dad's big black hogs. Dragonfly had come over to my house right after lunch that day, and because it was so terribly hot, my dad and mom decided we could go swimming, except that we had to wait an hour first because it's dangerous to go in swimming right after a meal. You might get cramps, which is kind of like local paralysis, and you can't move your legs and you might drown. Maybe I'm going to be a doctor someday. That's how I happen to know the medical names for some of these things. Phew, I said when I'd finished eating. It's terribly hot. Then I said, may I be excused, please? That's what you're supposed to say when you leave the table before the others do. Certainly, Dad said. But Mom said, I'm sorry, Billy, but I'll have to have help with the dishes today. It's wash day, you know. Well, I looked at all those dirty dishes on the table. The plates and cups and saucers and my big blue and white mug out of which I drank milk 3 times a day. And when I saw all the forks and knives and spoons and a big stack of other dishes, it actually hurt way down inside of me. I'd a whole lot rather be dunking myself in the old swimming hole in Sugar Creek than sloshing soapy water over dirty dishes. Hot water at that, on a terribly hot day. Then I happened to think how much my mom loved me and how hard she had to work all the time to keep our clothes clean and the house and prepare the meals and take care of Charlotte Ann and how very tired she looked. So I just made myself smile and say cheerfully, sure, I'll help you. I can't go swimming for an hour anyway. There was another reason that I wanted to help Mom, which I can't take time to tell you now. But when I'd been in the other room, looking at Charlotte Ann and watching her drink her milk out of a bottle, I'd heard Dad say to Mom, there's a little secret I want to tell you about Bill when I get a chance. You know... Then he told her something I'd told him that very morning. A secret that was the most important secret of my whole life. But I think I'll let you guess what it was. Pretty soon the dishes were finished, and Dragonfly was there, and in a jiffy he and I, both barefoot and with our overalls rolled up so our toes wouldn't get caught in the cuffs and send us sprawling head over heels, went scuttling like wild things across the road, over the old rail fence, and through the woods to the spring, where we knew the gang would be waiting for us. In 10 or 15 minutes, we all were there. Well, all except little Jim, who took piano lessons and had to practice a whole hour every day. A half hour in the morning and a half hour right after the noon meal. He'd taken lessons last summer, too, and could play a lot of things. Someday maybe he'd be a famous concert pianist. He knew the names of nearly all the famous musicians, such as Bach and Beethoven and Wagner. He even knew stories about different ones. Little Jim's mother was a wonderful musician, and she played in the piano in our church on Sundays. Did you ever hear a flock of blackbirds in the autumn, getting ready to fly south for the winter? Their voices are all raspy from chirping so much, and they seem to be squawking to the leaves of the trees to look out because pretty soon Jack Frost will get 'em, and they'll all have to die and be buried in a white grave. Well, when our gang gets together after we've been separated for a while, we are almost as noisy as 100 blackbirds. Blackbirds are what the winged notes on Little Jim's music sheets look like. They almost make a fella dizzy to even think of trying to play 'em. Well, pretty soon Little Jim was there, carrying the stick that he had cut from an ash limb. He nearly always carried a stick. He came running down the hill with his straw hat in one hand and his stick in the other, his short legs pumping like a boy's in a bicycle race, and with the dark curls on his head shining in the sun. And then we were all running as fast as we could toward the swimming hole. Last one in's a bear's tail, Circus cried over his shoulder. He was the fastest runner of all of us. He had his shirt off even before he got there, taking it off on the run. He was the first one in, all right, and I was the last. I was a little slow on purpose because I didn't want little Jim to be the bear's tail. Bears don't have...